Hello, my friends. This is Brent. I'm a coach and I work with people on all things related to self actualization, becoming the fullest and greatest version of yourself in this lifetime, getting rid of anything that would prevent that from happening. And so today's title is Are We All Wrong About Self Control? Because there is a theory that I've been working on about self control that is completely radical. And I really mean it. It's a total 180-degree shift from how all of us conventionally consider habit control, self control, anything to do with like getting yourself to do something that's good for you and what makes it a struggle. So I want to share this theory with you. I've been working on it. I think I'm ready now. And so I call this theory congruence theory. So I will just say right out the offset to be socially conscious that this is a theory. And what I'm going to do my very, very best to put this all in first person. I'm going to tell you about a series of experiments that I'm running on myself and the way in which they've been successful and the work that I'm still doing on them. And my hope for you is that this is interesting and illuminating and provides something for you that you can take with you and apply usefully in your own life. But I want to just carefully bracket this by telling you that it is just a theory and I don't know what I don't know, and it may not necessarily be safe for you individually to try what we're going to get into here. So I'm going to implore you to, if you are going to take action on anything you learn here, to run it by your health team, run it by your therapist or your addiction specialist or a friend or just your intuition, your common sense. Really be safe with this. I really think this is safe, but nevertheless, we're just in the beginning phases. So I would really like for you to keep that in mind as we go through what we're about to get through here. So here's the idea. So congruence theory stands in opposition to the conventional theory of self-control. And the conventional theory of self-control is that you cannot trust yourself. It is not safe to trust yourself. And I would add, it's not safe to trust your desires. It's not safe to trust your impulses. And so nobody would ever really say this out loud, but the kind of assumption underneath conventional theory is that if you don't keep yourself in check, right? If you're not hounding yourself and if you're not keeping yourself on a short leash, then you will probably inadvertently destroy your own life, right? If your habits stay unchecked, you're just going to collapse into nothingness. Your health will fall apart, your business will fall apart, your life will fall apart, everything would be bad. And so therefore you have to do your best with self-control. Does this sound familiar? This is kind of in the air, right? It's how we think about it. And so congruence theory, by contrast, and let me know if this sounds like any other psychological theory that you've heard anywhere else in the comments, I really want to know, is based on the idea that you can and should trust yourself. And check this out. It's safe to trust yourself. It's safe to trust your desires, and it's safe to trust your impulses. Now let's just pause right here. How does that land on you? Because I assume if you're like most people, it feels like a very troubling statement, doesn't it? It feels like a very foolish and irresponsible thing to say. That's the kind of the feeling I get about it. It's like you can't tell people to trust their desires because if you just told people to trust their desires, they would lead to ruin. But that's exactly the premise that I would like for us to scrutinize today. And I'll begin by sharing you my own personal story. I've shared this in a few different venues. It's my story about cigarettes and nicotine addiction. Some of you have heard this before. It goes like this. I got addicted to cigarettes. Basically, I was 16 years old. I smoked my first one and I took to it very quickly, very easily. I have nicotine addiction on both sides of my family, so there's a genetic component to it perhaps. But I did. And so it was never a lot. It was never like a pack a day. It was never like heavy, but it was never nothing either. Even though it was concentrated during certain periods, like when I was drinking with friends, like on a weekend, it averaged to about one cigarette per day over the course of 15 or 16 years, right? So not nothing. It's a lot of cigarettes. You can add them all up. And I did want to quit. At a certain point, especially later into my 20s, I was like, I don't really want to do this. And I tried quitting, and I would make it, say, 20 days, 40 days. My record was 90 days. And it would have been difficult. And eventually I just couldn't take it anymore. And I gave in and I smoked a whole bunch. And that was really disheartening. And so then this week came eventually in 2019, November 2019, where my wife, Jessica, was going to go out on a work trip and she was to be away for a week. And I had this idea, and I don't know how I came upon it, but I had this idea of trying something that I had never tried before, which was to smoke, but for the first time to smoke congruently. And I would do this without any sense of judgment, without guilting myself, without shaming myself, without justifying it either. So not like, talking about why it was okay or why I deserved it or, why I need to give myself a break or something. So in other words, there was no story or drama or anything about it. I just smoked just because I wanted to. And I allowed the experience of it to be that simple and that clean. And so it was really interesting. So I got a pack and I went right to work. I got right to it. And then the first day I was able to manage 5. And then the next day was 4. The third day was also 4. And then on the 4th day, I was in the middle of my 3rd cigarette. And I noticed something very strange at that point, where there was this cool little polarity shift around it. Whereas before I would have been exerting effort to not smoke, I was now exerting effort to smoke. And I was actually like trying to do it like out of loyalty to this experiment that I was trying. And the desire was sort of falling out from under me, so much so that I eventually got to this point where I was like holding a half finished one in my hand. And I couldn't do it. I couldn't bring myself to complete it. So I put it out and I threw it out, and then that was it. And all of the allure and the forbiddenness, like the forbidden fruit kind of quality about it, just drained away from it. All the drama, there was no attraction left. It was so interesting. And that was 6 years ago. And since then, I've had 2 as an experiment to see if the addiction was still there. And the answer was no. And other than that, it's been, it's 2025 now, so almost 6 years. So that was really interesting. And I was really impressed by that. Like just how, like I never had to quit. I never had to go through a whole like dramatic, griefy breakup thing with it. I just stopped doing it. It was so easy. It was disturbingly easy. And so I wanted to explore this a little further and really make sense of it. So fast forward to today, where I just started remembering it a little bit again, and I wanted to dust this off and give this a go. And so I'm running a total of 4 experiments all at once. So the first 2 are alcohol and cannabis, where I had just really approached a point in my life where I was starting to get fed up with them, and I had a strong desire not to do it anymore. And so it's been about a month, and I'm just not drinking any alcohol and I'm not smoking any cannabis. That seems to be sustainable. I'll check in with you about that later. The other one is sugar and overeating, where it's like sugar meaning candy and pastries, and overeating being like even like healthy food. I just like eat like way too much because I'm sort of addicted to this feeling of being really, really super overfull. And in both cases, what I'm doing is I've completely dropped away all of the restraints, all of them. And so I have this big bag of candy, like jujubes. And so I'm just like eating them as much as I want, whenever I want. And also when it comes to overeating, I'm just like filling up as much as I want. And in both cases, what I'm doing is I'm doing exactly the same thing as was with smoking. So I'm not judging myself. I'm not making myself feel bad about it. No guilt, no shame, no story, no justification, no explaining, no rationalization, including like justifying, oh, well, it's okay to do this because I'm doing this super cool experiment and I'm trying out this theory. That would still be a rationalization of some kind. So no story about it, no drama about it, no way, in other words, to make it okay. I'm not making it okay and I'm not making it not okay. Does this make sense? I'm just doing it, just eating the candy. And so I'm eating the candy and I'm noticing the consequences that come immediately after, where it feels like kind of gross to like eat a whole bunch of candy. and also some of the longer term consequences, because it's been a couple weeks now where I'm starting to gain weight, and I don't really like that either. Now, what I'm not doing is I'm not judging having gained weight. I'm not making myself feel good or bad or rationalizing that either, right? You're starting to see the pattern, hopefully. But I do notice, okay, yeah, I don't really like this. I don't really like gaining weight. I don't really like how this feels. And you might think, well, Brent, if you don't like how it feels, if you don't like the consequences, why don't you stop? But my answer is I will stop as soon as I get a stop signal, as soon as the desire is gone. So that's where I stand. And I'll keep you posted on this. I think it's really interesting. And if my aim is correct, if my idea is correct, then it means that I'll be able to wean off of my worst addictions in a way that's rather effortless and really self-loving and self-respectful in a way that's so sustainable. So you see this, like when I say about radical, you see what I mean, right? So, we're used to thinking of it, myself included. I'm used to thinking of habit mastery, self-control, self-discipline. I'm used to thinking of it in terms of, setting up structures and making yourself do certain things and like just doing your best. And okay, now's the time to push. And who knows, like, as I continue to put this together, there may still be a time and a place for that. But at the very minimum, I'm seeing that this sort of self-discipline kind of way of going about it is not the only way. That this is not the only thing. There's this whole other area as well. This is why this area of study is so rich and so interesting. So when it comes to congruence theories, there's this idea at the very center of it, very close to the center of this idea that you can trust yourself and trust your desires and your impulses, which is that there's something in you that's looking to complete itself. And I use the word karma quite usefully here, where according to my understanding of karma, karma is an unclosed loop, an unresolved story, a attachment to a particular realm of existence. Karma is something that pulls you back. There's sort of an incompleteness that binds you to something. And so the idea here is that once the karma is closed, or we could say once the loop is closed, then there's nothing attracting us to that old thing anymore. So that's what I'm saying is what happened with me and cigarettes. There's not like the whole thing just kind of closed and there's no reason to go back. So, and our question is how to do that with everything else that is maladaptive. And so the idea here is, in order to bring these loops to a close, in order to bring this karma to a close, some amount of trust is needed. And I had this really wicked realization, this question of, we understand conventionally addiction as something that is constantly pulling us toward it and we have to fight it. But what if the nature of addiction is that there's an experience that's attempting to complete itself that never does manage to be completed and is always truncated or curtailed or cut off before it reaches full circle. And there's something in us that's trying to get full circle, and that's the addiction. So in other words, the part of what makes an addiction could be that we're fighting against it. Isn't that an interesting point of view? So according to this congruence theory, it means that if you were to trust in the wisdom of your desire and your impulse, then maybe the loop could be closed. And you can see now here why I was so careful with my caveats at the beginning. Because it's, if I'm wrong, then it would mean that you're just, plunging headlong into an addiction. It gets worse, right? But then again, right? Like, the thing that freaks me out so much about sharing this with you, and you have no idea how hard it's been to put this together for you in a way that's sort of cohesive and like, can kind of stand on its feet, hopefully, is that our conditioning against trusting ourselves is so deep. It's such a success on the part of the collective unconscious, the parts of our collective unconscious that want to keep us disempowered, that it feels like heresy to suggest just trusting yourself and trusting your desires and trusting your impulses. Does that make sense? I'm really interested in the ways in which we culturally disempower ourselves. This is the whole idea behind the Sovereign Creators Collective, which is my membership group, which is about recognizing how we've been disempowered, how our sovereignty has been taken from us, or how we've given it away, and how to wake up out of that and remember our power. As far as I can tell, this is what we need individually, and this is what the world needs. If you're interested in that, check out the Sovereign Creators Collective. Join. It's 36 Canadian dollars a month. Super intimate coaching, group coaching. But nevertheless, I think that's what I came here to say. So we'll just wrap this all up. So what if trusting yourself were the way of actually controlling yourself? What would happen if you gave yourself permission to do what you want? Notice how it feels when I suggest that you just do what you want. Just do what you want. Notice how unsafe it feels. And here it is. It's this. I'm very clearly not telling you just to do whatever you want. What I am doing is I'm suggesting that you investigate that it would be unsafe. Investigate the foregone conclusion that it would be unsafe to do whatever you want. Does that make sense? So one more time, just for clarity. If you believe just doing whatever you want would be unsafe, question that. Question that, scrutinize that. Maybe you're not that untrustworthy. Because I'll tell you this, if you discovered that you can trust yourself and build up a trusting relationship with your desire and impulse and self, such that there was no more conflict, no more going this way and that way, going east and west simultaneously, ending up nowhere, constantly coming back to the starting square, and instead you are able to just move unidirectionally. Well, that's power. That's power. Now self-actualization is a real possibility. Now you can move coherently and congruently along that path to become that which you're meant to become. So thank you for listening. Let me know if this was interesting, if this was helpful. Hit that like button for me. I'd be grateful. And I'll catch you on the next one. Thank you.